Welcome back to Let's Play Rule the Waves 2 as France, starting in 1920. This is part 3, and we're into May 1921 in order to move things along a little bit. You can see here the most significant development has been the redoubtable, or as I perhaps should call them, redoutable, class have been commissioned and they're currently working up. You'll also notice that a lot of the ships are in the Mediterranean. This is because the President was unhappy with the deployment of the fleet only to Northern Europe, given the tensions with Italy. Tensions with Italy have gone down a little bit from 10 to 9, but nonetheless, they required a deployment of 115 fleet weight. And if we go to the map, we can see that we've deployed 129, so that's fulfilling that. We still have in Northern Europe another 39. We also have 74 aeroplanes in Northern Europe. Our air bases in the Mediterranean have been completed, so I'm going to move most of our aeroplanes from Northern Europe to the Mediterranean in anticipation that I can manage to push this Italian annoyance back up again. Obviously, Britain is there waiting in the wings too. Looking at the map, we can see that we are also probably overstacked in the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia. We're trying to extract ships out of that. If we go to the area view, which is helpful for this, you see in West Africa we need 10,000. We have just under 12, which is fine. In the Indian Ocean we need 4,000 and we've got nearly 12. This is because the ships are not optimized. If I go to the ships in service and sort on location and look at the Indian Ocean, we have a 3,800 ton destroyer, which almost fulfills the requirement, but not quite. If it had been a Colonial cruiser, it would have covered it fine. And this large armoured cruiser that is really quite unnecessary, but we have to keep it there until we can send something else. Now, memo to self, I probably, back in January 1920, should have just bitten the bullet and built 4 Colonial corvettes in order to deal with the situation, but I had other things on my mind. So I'm going to have a little think about how to deal with this just now. So we've got these 500-ton destroyers, which can be sent out, and that would do the trick. They're currently obsolete, so they're costing us more maintenance than necessary. So I'm going to take 3 of them. I'm going to take them to rebuild, increase our depth charges. That takes us up to that. Delete one of the torpedo mounts. I'm going to remove the aft turret. I'm going to get rid of these 2-inch guns because 2-inch guns, -3, that's fine. So let's okie doke that. It's going to cost a rebuild cost of 50. So just a slight delay of a few months to do that, but that should be fine. Going back to the area view, we have the same problem in the South Pacific, so that destroyer will help with that. And in Southeast Asia, we're pretty optimal. Need 17,000, have just over 17,000. So with those destroyers, when they come in 3 months' time and then a few more months to send them out, the Colonial fleet should be sorted, and I can kind of forget about it, which is what I want. Under construction, I have one of the Doucets almost finished, and so I've just started a second one in its rebuild. The Corvair that I've converted to a CVL is also almost finished. I've got these 500 tonners I've just done. I've also refitted these 400 tons as corvettes in all but name for trade protection. Under research, I've had a couple of nice developments. Under guns, I've had this 9-inch quality 1 gun come through, so that's great. Also, I've had a light AA weapons increased effectiveness as well. If we have a look at the air bases, these are all done, so I've started increasing the intelligence on Britain and Italy, and we've had yet another private shipyard, so we've had 3,000 tons of private shipyard. We're still well behind Britain, which I believe is at 40,000, 43,000 now, leaping ahead. I feel like I still have to nurse the finances a bit. We've had no increase in the yearly budget since the start of the year. So we've only got 9,000 funds. Not enough really to start splurging on the amount of refits. But obviously when those ships next turn finish up, we'll have some wiggle room to play with. Let's push this on to June. There's the Dessay and the Trident. So the offer of another arms treaty, well, that's kind of interesting. Obviously the default is to say absolutely not. We could be neutral, or we could actually accept the treaty. If I look at the almanac, Britain is building 4 battleships at the moment, but these are 15,000-ton battleships. Heaven knows what that'd actually be like. It would have been quite amusing, because we're not building anything, if we could have had a treaty and then forced others to dump their current designs. But of course, the new treaty might be more generous, so I'm going to say no to that. And do they want us to put some air units? So I'm going to say no, and no to all of that. All right, let's just do no to all. All right, stop nagging me. And I'm just going to deal with my air bases and note that tension's gone back up to 10, which is nice. So I'm getting messages about my air bases lacking enough planes because my torpedo bombers are still under development. They've got 1 month to go. In the Mediterranean, I've deployed some fighters to Bizerte and to Nice to give us some cap over these areas. I've kept the flying boats that are deployed in Northern Europe there until it's clear, until really war breaks out. They're all on active service, so their quality is slowly improving. If we go back to our ships in service and sort them by displacement, the next question is what to do with this spare money, 3,600. So option number 1, let that roll. Build it up to a little bit of some sort of war chest. Option 2, design something nice and shiny. Under the treaty restrictions, that would either be a really terrible battleship or a pretty fine heavy cruiser. And option 3, of course, is to carry on with our program of rebuilds and refits. Thinking about it, I could also put my newly deployed Mediterranean fleet into reserve. One of the nice things about France is you can put them in reserve in either area, the Northern Europe or the Mediterranean. Okay. So I'm going to put another Dessay into rebuild. And then allow a little bit of money to roll on. The Italian AV. What have we got? 6-inch guns, 20 knots. This is sort of nonsense I was given at the very beginning and scrapped because it's just not fast enough. It does put me in mind I might want to design a fast AV, but it's not a priority at the moment. 5-inch guns, quality 1, not the best. Our new torpedo bomber has entered service. Great. So I'm just going to add some of that. Let's see what August brings. And our new Requin has finished working up one of our redoubtables and the redoubtable itself. And 6 destroyers. That's great. I can move some of those out to colonial service. Colonial crisis with Japan. Safeguard our interests. Japanese aren't thrilled with us, but, you know, if it raises money and stuff. So now the Prime Minister wants us to move our fleet back from the Mediterranean to Northern Europe. Our current strength is 152. We need 196. Okay. Spy from Japan. The game's really edging me towards Japan. I'm going to handle this quietly because I really don't want a war with Japan. So let's move just a couple. Actually, let's move a couple of these old ones back, and that should do the trick, I believe. And go to the next turn. With the press doing headlines authorises increase in naval spending. Yes, thank you very much. Unexpected advances in turrets and gun mountings. So improved. Eliminates the rate of fire penalty below 8-inch guns. Excellent. Setback. Oh dear. The map says that I've only got 109 in Northern Europe, so I'm going to add a couple more ships back from the Mediterranean. Which hopefully should account for that. Italy, as you can see, has gone up to 11. That's fine. I've kept a lot of ships now in active status, particularly all the ones in the Mediterranean, and that's made their crew quality good rather than fair. I am tempted, given that we are now at 11 with Italy, to just bite the financial bullet and mobilize the fleet. That still keeps us in a positive number. I'm probably going to take one of these Desays and stick that into rebuild as well to keep that going. They are the biggest investment long term that I'm doing, so you know it's only 1921. Probably best to carry that on, even though we are likely to have a war with France fairly soon. Next month. An anti-French rebellion has broken out in Morocco. Well, really? And Italy appears to be considering a naval rearmament program. Ask you for your advice. Well, let's push tensions plus plus plus. Well, why wouldn't you? So let's do the usual war things. I'm just going to sort displacement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. On to trade protection. Our submarines are going to go on fleet support. I'm hopeful that I can put the Italians onto blockade. If we look, we currently have 75 and they have 207. Okay. They are reasonably comparable, but I've still got a lot of my fleet in the Northern Europe. So let's sort by area and let's look at all of these. Less anything that's still working up. Actually, there on trade protection. Let's move these guys to the Med. I realise I may have to move some back. And I've moved my air force from Northern Europe to the Mediterranean with the exception of Brest. And let's see what the first battle is going to bring us. Convoy defence. Okay, our forces, 13 battleships, a couple of battle cruisers, all the goodies, 150 aircraft with the carrier. So let's pause there, reflect on what's happened so far. So here's the synopsis for the year. Some of the rebuilds got done and new rebuilds got started. The under constructions got ticked off and a lot of the refits started and ended. So pretty well for that. The budget mainly doing this dance of stopping it getting too much. Every time it went into surplus, I used it up to keep things pushing along. And you can see from the orange line, the funds, I slowly started to build them back up. And then boom, obviously war starts. And with war, as you can see from the blue line, expenses rocket up as well. 4 new techs, not as many as I'd hoped actually. Tensions obviously percolated very well, as you can see over here. We went from Italy being annoyed with us to actual war, and the budget correspondingly going from 243 up to just under 400 for the duration of the war, but of course a lot of that's absorbed by the extra expense. So I want a short war with Italy. I want to get some colonial gains in the Mediterranean just to tighten things up there, and then get out and get back to rebuilding and refitting. So join me for part 4, where we'll see our first battle take place.